And like, I'm loving the podcast.
Thank you. I didn't know you were listening.
Yes. So I started listening when I think Danielle was on Cataldi.
That was early. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, gosh, some of these people I have not talked to, heard from, seen in so long. And I mean, some of that's growing up, but most of it's that I don't live nearby anymore. So, it's not just refreshing to see everybody and know that everybody's doing okay, but it's also very nostalgic. Like, I'm like, oh my God, man, I haven't seen her since I was 16,
mm-hmm.
And I didn't graduate with you guys. So
really? See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I left at the end of junior year. So I spent 6th grade through 11th grade with you guys. And then I went to another high school for graduation because my dad was in the Army. So we moved to the Poconos. Yeah.
Wow.
There's literally nothing out there.
Yeah. That's, I've gone camping up there. I've probably, I've done camping. I did a wedding up there.
Camping, hunting. That's it. There's nothing. Wow. There's no shopping. I mean, there's nothing fun to do. But I think while I was living out there, because Alea went to East Stroudsburg, right? Mm-hmm. I think Alea went to East, which is not far from where I lived at all. It might have been like a good 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But she and I never had the opportunity to see each other while she was there. So, but yeah, while I was living out there, she was out there for a little bit too. So that was pretty cool.
Wow. We went to the end, but let's, I guess, start at the beginning. I have so many questions off of that. I hope I remember it. Because when you say you left in 11th grade, like, I remember you when I was thinking yesterday and today kind of about you, my memories of you. And I was literally just looking like, what were the songs? Like, we had chorus together.
Yeah.
And we had that goofy teacher, Mr. Schwartz, I think his name was.
Yes.
And he was like a replacement teacher for a semester for our teacher that was on sabbatical, maternity leave. And it was in band class.
Yeah.
I just had JP here. I was talking to JP on Monday, and we were talking about when the sewer pipe broke in chorus, and we had to move into the band for chorus for like the rest of the year. And it was you, me, Coop, and Alea. Yeah. And we would all just hang out and sing songs. And I told Alea this, and she doesn't remember, but we used to play Anywhere by 112 on the piano. It's the only song in my life I ever knew how to play. Boom, 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 boom.
That's hilarious, because I was telling when I was telling my husband about today, about your podcast and our conversation, and he said, well, what do you remember about high school? And I said, Brad used to do the most impeccable Wanye impression. We were clowns. We were clowning the whole time. We always talked about Martin, right? Which was, we knew, you and I were probably the few people who knew almost every line from every episode. Like, that was so funny. But that's really my probably fondest memory of you, is that Wanye impression, because you did it so well. And I just was like, how does he? And then every run you had like this.
I got it. I can still do it.
We were clowning, but I thought it was interesting that you named your show We Weren't Friends in High School, because I kind of felt like I wasn't really friends with too many people in high school. I mean, I had friends, but I didn't have a large circle. But I always felt like you and I had this extremely funny connection. Like, we could always connect in comedy, and we both had this thing that nobody else knew. When it came to Martin, when it came to music, we always were on the same page. So that was, that's really like one of my fondest memories is music class. Well, choir.
So what I was also thinking was, like in general, and, you know, this goes back to my talk with Alea, you know, kind of like not having a whole lot, not really having like Black friends, you know, and when I think of like friends, you know, I give the definition all the time that, you know, kind of have to know each other's parents, or you had to go to their house. And so I kind of consider everything that just happened in class acquaintances. But, you know, my best friends, you know, being like Ray and some others throughout school, were all pretty much white. And so hanging with you guys was really my only time to, and my dad did not like modern stuff. My dad was old school, Afro, you know what I mean? And so like, you know, 1950s, watch John Wayne type shit. So like to have like a Black community to be able to talk about Comic View and
oh my God,
like
Comic View, yes. And we used to always sing the theme song, Comic View on BET, coming at you 6 nights a week, get your laugh on. Hey, you want to get your laugh on?
That show was not funny.
It was not. But you know what's crazy? It's like years later I discovered some of the guys that were on the show went to Temple with me.
Really?
Yeah. And two of them now write for Kevin Hart.
Wow. Were they in that documentary?
Yes.
Because the dude with the with like the waves looks really, he looks really familiar.
He went to Temple.
Is that the guy from Comic View?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he looks, every time I see him, I go, that guy looks really familiar. Like I've seen him and I didn't laugh.
And Naeem writes for Kevin as well. He was also on the documentary, and he went to Temple. Okay. So that's, But we, you know, I mean, even though Comic View wasn't funny, and again, like Martin, it was like a big part of our growing up.
It was ours.
Yeah, it was ours. It was part of our generation. And I mean, a lot of kids I grew up with, I won't say grew up with, I don't necessarily feel like I grew up with anybody. But a lot of kids that we knew watched that show. I mean, they might have had to sneak to watch it though. So,
look, if you didn't watch Comic View, when the Yin Yang twins said "get loose with it," like Short said, "let Bruce hit it," you don't know who they're talking about. That's right.
You had no idea. I knew who Bruce was.
I knew. That was a Comic View thing.
Bruce was on there, and I think he had an S curl when he was on Comic View.
Yep, and in that blue suit. He looked like Luther Vandross. Yeah. Fat Luther.
Oh my gosh. But you know, it's interesting you said that we were like your connection to Black culture, because it was, even though like both my parents are Black, I always had to search for a connection to Black friends because I moved around so much. And I think that a good part of us, I think a good part of Black kids in general is always searching for a connection to people like you. And I don't necessarily know that white kids deal with that. And I could be wrong. They might. But growing up Black, I always felt like I had to have or had to search for and create a connection with other Black kids. And it was, and some of me thinks that comes from not just moving around so much, but my parents had this desire to live in a diverse neighborhood. And so we moved to Ambler, where we were on we lived on Southern Avenue. And I maybe there might have been 3 Black families on my block when we moved there, you know, and Ambler looks very, very different now. But, you know, the idea that we were moving to a diverse neighborhood, which was predominantly white, you know, for my parents meant safety. It meant better schools. But unfortunately and consequently, that meant I didn't really have the connection to other Black kids like I needed to have. And that's a huge part of your growing up and your coming of age as a Black person, I think.
Yeah.
So it was when I was in middle school, I didn't really have a lot of Black friends. And I noticed that when I went to high school, the friends that I had in middle school, even though I went to high school with my friends from middle school, they weren't the same friends. And when I got to high school, that's when I found, you know, my Black friends. And I just gravitated toward them like, oh, yes, this is, you know, yes, collard greens and cornbread and mac and cheese. Like, yes, this is what I need. This is me. And it wasn't that I didn't want to have my white friends or carry them with me, but that's not who I was. And so I wanted to be with people who were like me and who could understand why I felt the way that I felt at certain times. Or, you know, they could help me understand certain looks that other white kids would give me, or, you know, certain responses I would get from white kids when I would say things. So that connection is important, and I feel you 100%.
Wow. I want to keep talking about that so much more. Maybe at the end we'll just keep going, or it'll happen in the middle. But I want to do some structure to this, because we'll get 45 minutes into this and we'll never even find out like how you got to Wissahickon. But when did you? So I didn't actually know that you moved around like that. At least I don't remember knowing that. I might have known that, but so when did you actually come to Wissahickon?
So I don't remember the year, but it was the summer before my 6th grade. So maybe 93, maybe 93, 94, about then. And we moved to Wissahickon. We moved to Ambler from Kentucky.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We lived in Fort Knox. Right. Exactly. We lived in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I didn't go to an elementary school. I went to an intermediate school, so it's only 4th and 5th grade.
Okay.
And then we moved to Ambler. And we moved to Ambler. My dad was, again, he was Army, but it was time for his recruiting rotation. And so he wanted to be home. He wanted to be closer to where we're from. And we're originally from West Oak Lane.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Wow. Andrews and Ogons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. My favorite wing place is on Ogons.
Is it?
Yeah, it's now it's called Barbecue Town, but it used to be called like Chang Seafood or Wong Seafood. I swear I'm not being racist. It really is one of those like types of names.
No, I think it's Wong's.
Yeah, it's Wong Seafood. It's like an all Asian family except for one light skinned brother with a jerry curl, and they used to sell whole fried chicken wings. This is so wild, for 30 cents a wing. So you get so my dad and I used to go and get like 12 wings for me and him for like $8 with fries. But they would do gizzards and trout and, you know, all the stuff that we like and scallops and all that. And it stayed in circulation. It's probably passed over 4 times into seemingly different owners, but always basically the same stuff and always the wings.
So, you know what? I think I remember it being Wong's, but I don't remember ever going. I'm going to have to ask my grandmother. She has never left West Oak Lane.
Right by Pagano's on the same block.
Ooh.
Same block.
Pagano's?
Yeah.
That's where my heart is. I love Pagano's Strombolis. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so yes.
So you're from West Oak Lane originally.
I'm from West Oak Lane.
Your parents are from West Oak Lane.
Yeah. And we moved to Ambler, and we at first lived on Park Avenue.
Over by...
I used to live right across the street
Pickering?
from Lisa Richard. I lived right across the street from Lisa Richard, a few doors up from Justin Markley, Laura McCall. Who else?
Is that by Pickering Field?
It was... Well, yes. So actually, because Park Avenue is like a horseshoe kind of thing. Yes, Pickering ends up, if you left Pickering and went down the street and turned, that would be Park Avenue.
Or is that Knights Park? Is it near either?
Well, it's actually between Knights Park and Pickering. Knights Park is right on the
They're 2 blocks
to Park
They're
Avenue.
2 blocks from each other, right?
Yeah. But it's so, and then the following year when I was in 7th grade, we actually moved to the parallel street, Southern Avenue. And we stayed there until 11th grade.
Okay. So coming in 6th grade, so the way the schools are set up in Wissahickon, there's all these different elementary schools, and then everyone's kind of thrown into pods. I wasn't even in really my pods with any friends at all through middle school. So for me, it was rough because I felt like I was starting over socially. For you, you were starting over. What was it like not knowing anybody?
That was a challenge. I remember gravitating toward Grace Wong when she was the new kid. I was like so excited because I'm like, oh, new kid. Okay. But you know, she eventually developed her circle of friends. But I always felt a little socially awkward, and that didn't stop with being the new kid. You know, years later, I felt socially awkward too. So yeah, it was kind of uncomfortable, but I befriended, I kind of always wanted to be an educator, and you know,
now you are.
So I befriended the teachers, right? So I really liked Miss McKnight, you know, and I cannot find that lady anywhere, but anyway. And one of my favorite teachers was Mr. G. And I never had his class, but I did like to go, you know, talk to him and hang out with him, you know. So those are kind of my memories, honestly, kicking it with the teachers.
Okay. And then 7th, 8th grade, did it get, well, you said you did eventually have friends in middle school. They changed in high school, but what was kind of the spark for you in 7th, 8th grade for you to start like kind of gathering friends?
I think maybe I just wasn't, I think that first year I wasn't really in a pod. I don't remember which pod I was in. I think I was in a pod. But I wasn't in a pod with the people I befriended in 7th grade. So I think it might have just been, you know, being introduced to more people and getting to know more people. Yeah. But 7th and 8th grade, I was friends with like Alicia Conti and Heather Goodwin. Was Maria? I can't remember if Maria and I were friends, you know, Maria Gigliotti. I can't remember if we were friends in middle school or high school, but you know,
was Rachel Moydell in that group?
She wasn't.
No,
she wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Trying to think of Alicia, was Rena in that group?
Rena was in that group.
Okay. I'm trying to think of like Alicia's crew at that time because she was just on the show. So
yeah. So I know Alicia had like a really big circle, and Heather and Rena were part of that circle. I wasn't. I just was really cool with Alicia and Heather and Rena. And we actually had, Rena and Heather and I had really weird nicknames for each other. So they called me Ninny Brailsfart. First of all, nobody could ever pronounce my last name, right? I was Beesworth. I was Bradford. Nobody ever.
Brailsford, right? Brailsford.
Yeah. So my married name is a relief, but nobody. So they call me Ninny Brailsfart, and Alicia was Alicia Cunty.
I can see it.
Yeah, and Heather was Heifer Breakwind. We just, you know, had ridiculous little, but we were 12. Yeah. So things like that were, you know, they were funny to us. But that was, you know, those were my friends. Or, you know, we didn't really kick it outside of school because my parents were very strict people. They are still very strict people. But it was, you know, they were a nice little circle when I was in middle school.
When you say that they were strict, as far as like having friends over, you going over other people's houses,
all of it.
Were you able to like have friends in the neighborhood? What were your limitations? What were you allowed to do?
So my parents adhere to their faith very closely. And so as a kid, my friends had to come from church. And it wasn't necessarily that my parents were like, we don't like those other kids. It was just a matter of, if they go to our church, we already know them.
Sure.
And so there was that. But no, I really couldn't do parties. I really couldn't have friends over. I really couldn't have sleepovers like other kids were having. I was friends with Jennifer Sloss. I don't know if you know her. So, okay, so I was friends with Jen Sloss.
Sean's going to be on the show this week.
Is he?
Yeah, his show airs on Monday.
Oh, cool. Oh,
Yeah.
So I was friends with Jen Sloss in high school, and my parents even made her feel like, you know, when she would come over, they would make that awkward. It was all, it was more me going to her house than her coming to mine, because my parents would make it like super awkward, or uncomfortable for me, because I was always scared, like, oh my God, what are they about to say to her? You know, it was weird. It was like even if I brought up, even if it was just a girlfriend, my parents would treat it like I was bringing a new guy to the house. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the worst situation ever. So it was definitely a challenge to develop friendships. And later on in high school, I did develop friendships with people I went to church with. And I'm actually, you know, still really close to them today. So, but yeah, my parents, they used to call my dad DMX. They would call, because he would walk, we had Rottweilers, and he would walk our Rottweiler down the street without a leash.
Oh
and
my gosh.
People in the neighborhood would come, yeah. And he was bald and he yelled, and geez, very DMX-ish. But yeah, my dad he is, he's cool. But when I was growing up, it was hard to live under that. You can't do anything. So
my dad was very strict, and also had like a caricature, but we had a shepherd, and he didn't walk down the street with him, but he would walk down the street, usually just like looking for me in like slippers and a robe. Like he would come, he would like come home from work, and he would like look in the kitchen and see that the dishes hadn't been washed. And so the first thing he would do would be go upstairs and change, because you don't come outside in your work clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he would change into like his slippers and robe. Then he would come out looking for me.
Because you definitely go outside in your slippers and robe.
Oh man, yeah, those are indoor slippers. And they're like, hey, here comes my dad in like giant afro and a beard like twice as big as this.
Oh my gosh. I think growing up with strict parents is tough, but it has its benefits, you know.
Yeah, you know, even if I don't adhere to the things that, you know, my dad taught me a lot, and I stopped seeing my dad when I was like probably 15. But prior to that, you know, I grew up with him like through all those times that a dad is supposed to teach a kid at least most of the important stuff that you would assume you teach them, you know, as far as being a good person. And at that point, I had learned enough and my mom as well, but I learned enough from my dad at least to know when I was doing stuff that was wrong, even if I wasn't fixing my behavior, I at least knew it, you know, so I didn't have a lapse in understanding, at least.
Right.
So yeah, you know, it worked at least in that way. And I think later on, you know, and with my mom, once I unlearned some of the other things my dad taught me, it started to balance out pretty good.
Yeah. But that's important too. We unlearn things that our parents have taught us. We don't have to, you know, and I thought I had great parents, but there were things of theirs that I had to unlearn. So I feel you.
So what would you do when you're home, before you get to high school, you're in middle school, you're, you know, 12, 13, 14, what are you doing when you're home after school?
Oh, so I was a latchkey kid. And that actually started when I was about 9, but in middle school, I was definitely responsible for caring for my younger brother and sister. So I would get home from school and I would wait at Pickering until the bus dropped my brother off and my sister, and then I would get them and go home and stay at home with them and watch them cook dinner if I needed to, help with homework if I needed to. You know, I sometimes I look back at my childhood and I think I spent a good portion of it already parenting, you know. But we did what we had to do because we didn't have anything. You know, my mom had to work, my dad had to work, and, you know, so I did a lot of parenting of my siblings. And that was my extra time. If my parents came home from work early and I wanted to go out to play, I would go out to play. And nowadays that sounds weird because 12-year-olds don't go out to play. They get on their phones and talk to their friends, or, you know, they they navigate social media, but I got on my bicycle and, rode around, if I had those few minutes or maybe an hour of freedom, I was out. I would just get on my bike and ride around the neighborhood.
I loved riding bikes when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's what we used to. I grew up in South Ambler, and that's what we used to do all day, all night, was just ride bikes till the street light came on.
Yep. Oh yeah, but that street light
came on at 8. Had to go home.
Yes. And you know what? If I wasn't home, my dad had this whistle that you could hear. Now, Southern Avenue is 2 blocks over from Knights Park. If I was at Knights Park, I could hear that whistle. My dad has this whistle that it's like it reverberates off of every building. And he would come outside and he would whistle. And my brother and I would have this look like, oh, we got to go, because if he had to whistle, that meant that street light was on too long before you made it home.
How about this? Was it ever like getting close and you thought you might, because this used to happen to me, you think you hear the whistle and you're like,
yes,
what's that? But you don't hear it. And everyone's like, you're crazy. You don't hear it. And then like 9 minutes later, it does happen. You're like, I knew it. I could have beat the whistle. I should have left.
Yes. And I actually have gotten in trouble a few times for ignoring my conscience. Because it's just your conscience that makes you hear that whistle, right? Oh my gosh. It has. And I remember one time I didn't hear the whistle. And my father used to always say, if you don't hear that whistle, you went further than you were supposed to, And there was a time when I didn't hear that whistle, but then I heard my mother's voice. And I looked around, I didn't see her. So I was like, all right, well, it's fine. And then I heard her voice again a few minutes later, and I looked and she was there. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Then I knew I was in trouble because my parents didn't play them games.
For me, my dad, would go kind of overboard in public. And, when that happened, and I grew up with parents that were stricter even than my dad. Kids whose parents are stricter than my dad. Yeah. And we would kind of like talk about, oh, that kid, or, that kid can't go anywhere but across the street, or, that kid's not allowed to play with us. Or, did you ever feel like you were the subject of talking, or were you ever like embarrassed kind of by the strictness of your parents?
Not in middle school or high school. My mom showed up to my school a few times in elementary, and she would just sit in my classroom. I'd be like, oh my God. There was actually one time my mother and father were publicly expressed their disappointment with me. And it was in social studies. I got an email not an email. What am I talking about? My parents got a phone call from Mr. McCoy.
From Mr. McCoy?
Mr. McCoy, 7th grade social studies. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. McCoy and I just didn't get along. I don't think anybody got along with him. Now, I was pretty quiet in class, except chorus or choir, but he didn't like me. So there was a moment when I yawned really loud in class, and he took that as disrespect. So he called my parents, and my parents came to the school, and I used to take the bus, but he called my parents. My mom called the office, had me called down. So I get to the office. She's on the phone. Don't take the bus. I'm on my way. I'm like, all right. So she came to the office, and it was embarrassing. Wow. Chewed me up. Don't have these people calling me at my job. And I was like, I didn't have him call you at your job. I didn't tell this man to call you. So then my parents came in for a meeting, and they met Mr. McCoy, and they didn't like him either. So they were like, all right, they still encouraged me. They still say, you don't be disrespectful. I was trying to explain to them, like, I wasn't disrespecting him. That's just his way. Mm-hmm. Every little thing kids did get on his nerves. But yeah, my mom, she came to the school, and But it was in the office though. There were maybe one or two other kids there that I didn't know, but in middle school and high school, she didn't show up and cut up on me. So I'm grateful for that.
My social studies teacher in 7th grade was like very similar, Mr. Foch.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Foch. Wait a minute. Was he, which pod, was that B pod?
Yeah.
Oh, so I didn't have Mr. Foch, but I never heard good things about Mr. Foch.
My mom still talks about him. She's like, remember that guy? We kind of think he was, I don't know. Fuck it, it's my show. We kind of thought he was racist. And I remember I did like this Frederick Douglass one-man show do you remember History Day? Mm-hmm. And everyone had to do like a history presentation. Well, I did like I was the drama kid, right? So I did Frederick Douglass one-man show where I like talk, and I brought in like this mock-up of his newspaper and like did this whole like presentation as Frederick Douglass giving his history. I wish I could remember that stuff now, and I remember he was like I think he was like riding me, and I think he like gave me a bad grade or something, or wouldn't let me go or something. It was like weird, and it was like this big hoopla, and then like we had to get like the Multicultural Society involved.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a whole thing. And my dad always had a tendency to like push things, into the racist zone. Like that guy's a racist, that guy's racist, because he was so angry. But my mom was kind of on board with this too. And, it was so weird. So for you to say that you never heard anything good makes me feel better than.
Yeah. When it comes to my children, I teach my kids about race and racism, but I always teach them that not every negative experience you have with a person who doesn't look like you is about racism, but you will know racism when it happens. And so I don't doubt my kids when they tell me that they think they're being treated differently because of their color or because of their race. I never doubt my kids, and I deal with it. And I tell them, everybody is not going to accept you. They're going to look at you and say, well, they're different or I don't like them because they're different, and their difference is the way they look. And that's not what I want to get with. But I mean, even at 11, like my son's dealt with experiences like that with other kids, and one kid that he was calling his friend. And that's, and my son was, despite being taught over and over what that looks like, this kid was calling him the N-word more than once. And he just said, well, yeah, I know that's racist, but, and I said, we don't. So it was, he, even at his young age, he's experiencing racism with kids. And I try to teach my kids that when you feel that way, recognize it. And don't let it pass you by. Stop whatever you're doing and just say, okay, this is wrong. I can't do you because you're not willing to do me right now.
That's scary.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's scary.
The boy was texting him. He called him a dumb fucking nigger in a text message.
Wow. That's scary.
This is an 11-year-old. Yeah.
I used to have friends that would like make jokes. And I always felt like I kind of had to like laugh it off. And even today I have friends that make jokes about stuff. But, as you get older, and when I'm like, 37 now, and I have a better sense of people and character, and a history, I guess, with people. But it's just funny how you learn to be like that when you're 11.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's got to be new material you're trying out for the first time in your life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And you say to you as a parent, you start to recognize that when your kids have certain experiences, that the kids that are imposing these experiences on them are getting it from somewhere, right? So my natural inclination is to say, well, if this kid is calling my son a nigger, his parents have said that in his presence, but that's not necessarily the truth anymore. Right. A lot of times our kids are getting things like, or not our kids, but kids are getting things like that from social media. They're getting things like that from television. And so they're getting things like that from other kids whose parents talk like that.
Right.
So it's really hard at this point to, determine where a child would learn to say something like that and to hurl it in a way that was intended to hurt someone. So when he said it, the way he said it, I said, oh, he knew that was something.
That phrasing is like so classic. That's like a classic phrase.
And I said, well, it would, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to say, okay, well, he knew that was something that would hurt you. So then he knew that it was wrong to use it against a person of color. Mm-hmm. So he learned that somewhere, but my son, he had like you, he would laugh it off. And I had to teach him, we don't laugh off things like that. And I think he laughed it off, or his laughing it off is a repeating of when I was a kid and I would laugh it off when my white friends would make jokes about race, and it was almost, I think in my mind, I would say, well, if these are the only friends I have, so, I don't want to piss them off. Yeah. I don't want to correct them because they won't be my friends anymore. But, at this point, I'm like, I don't need friends like that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you go to high school, I guess. What happens for you in high school that you start gaining different friends? So that's part of the podcast I hit on a lot is changing grades or changing schools, or, kind of changing, I guess, people age differently or whatever. But it always seemed to me like in different stages, I would lose friends. Yeah. And people, but they didn't go anywhere. They would still be in the school. But it's just like all of a sudden new grade, from middle school to high school, elementary school to middle school, whatever. We're not friends anymore. It's a different, you're in a different clique, a different crew that I don't belong to. So you mentioned that you kind of weren't friends with the same people in middle school and got a different group of friends in high school. What happened there?
I think it was really, like I mentioned, like Alicia had like this big group of friends, and Heather was part of that group, and Rena was part of that group, and I just wasn't. And it wasn't, I didn't necessarily feel like we weren't friends anymore. It was just like, this is the direction you're going in, and I'm not really part of that group. So, and again, a lot of it was that I needed Black friends. And it wasn't that I was trying to say, I can't be friends with you guys because you're not Black. It was this feeling that I wasn't necessarily connecting to the people I was cool with in school on the level that I should have been. So, I mean, I still, when I would see them around the school, I would still say, hey, we would still laugh and joke around. But my friend group became different because, one, there was something missing, and two, I wasn't necessarily part of their larger circle, which was okay. It wasn't like I said, I never felt like they didn't like me anymore, or I didn't like them. It just changed. And I think, part of it could also be summer break. You spend 3 months out of school, probably not really talking to all those people you were in school with. And so you don't necessarily continue to click with them once you've grown up. And it's crazy how much you grow up in 3 months. I was going to say,
it's like Stranger Things when they came back from summer and they'd all been in different stuff. And the one kid came back from like nerdy camp and wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, and they're all into girls. And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yes. You do change a lot. And I don't necessarily think I recognized that until I became a teacher and I watched my own students do it. I would see them at the end of 7th grade, and then they would come back and see me as 8th graders, like the start of 8th grade, and they're taller, and some of them have facial hair. And I'm like, what? Like, what happened to you? You're not my little 12-year-old baby. So you just grow up a lot. And I think, just not connecting with them over the summer, plus, again, strict parents, I wasn't able to hang out with anybody. So, yeah, I think it just ran its course.
Yeah. So then who did you start hanging out with in high school? Who were those friends?
Oh, so...
And let me ask you this. Did Did it change? How much did it change for you for like, because you mentioned like your parents weren't very trusting. You mentioned Jen Sloss, like you had like a friendship, you were going to people's houses, but how did things change, or would you consider that things changed enough to consider them like friends like that? The definition I use is friends, where like they can come over to your house, like in a way that you could interact with them the way friends do. Is that what we're talking about when we say friends in high school? Okay.
Yes. So when I developed new friendships in high school, it was Stephanie Crowder, it was Antoinette Wise, it was Danita Brown, and those people were, and I mean, I hung out with Coop, and oh my gosh, I became really close to Linnea Huckabee, you know? So that was my circle, and they all looked like me, you know? So that meant a lot to me. But those were also kids I went to church with for the most part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were also, you know, I went to church with them. And, Leah Dempsey. I don't know that many people know Leah Dempsey. She was very quiet.
What year?
Very quiet.
What year was she?
Oh, I think she was a year older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe she was a year older than we were. But she was super quiet. But we had this group called the O5. So it was like the original five. So it was myself, Antoinette, Danita, Leah, and Stephanie. And after I moved away, the O5 didn't get together again until my baby shower in 2008.
Wow.
That was the next time we were all together.
Wow.
So you're talking about like a good 8 years of not seeing each other. But that was my crew. You know, those are the people I would walk to West Ambler with. Those are the people that I would meet up at Rita's. So they used to work at Rita's. So those are, you know, that was my hangout. And like I said, these were kids I went to church with and didn't live too far from. My parents knew their parents already. But, you know, so I think that is really what made my parents kind of loosen the reins. They were like, oh, okay. You know, we know these kids. We know their parents, you know. So yeah, that was my crew in high school.
What was kind of like your thing? What would you guys do?
Ooh, well, we honestly would just walk all over Ambler. Like
really,
you know, Ambler has changed so much. When we were kids, that's all you could do in Ambler was walk around. Literally, you could just walk around. So we did. It was Rita's and, gosh, now I can't think of the pizza place we used to go to.
Candida's. Oh my gosh. I did not remember the name of that.
Are they still there?
No, it's a Jamaican place now.
Really?
Yeah. And it's sad because Candida's was like one of the last places that was still there. That, like the newsstand was like one of the original places from when I grew up there. That was still there. And maybe like 4 years ago, swapped out.
So I haven't been to Ambler in a very, 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 very long time.
Oh,
I drove through Ambler maybe 2 summers ago. I think I drove through Ambler. Actually, I'm lying. The last time I drove through Ambler was 2016.
Oh, wow. Your mind was probably blown then, but your mind would be blown now.
Between 2016 and now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting.
Now there's a lot more successful things there. Like then there was like 4 years ago, there were things there, but there was some stuff that was still trying to figure it out. Now some of those places have moved out and some of the smaller places have moved into bigger buildings and really like flushed it out.
So I need to make a visit. You know, we don't live too far now. We're in Maryland. Yeah. So I need to go back through. It was very different driving through there and seeing, you know, we stopped at the 7-Eleven on the corner. And, you know, I went to Temple Ambler for maybe 2 years. Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to actually drive through Ambler this day because we were already nearby. And I mean, it was I was like, wow, like it's just so different. It's not where I lived. And even though I moved a lot, I consider that where I grew up because, you know, those are the years you grow up, that 11 to, or that I was 10. No, I was 11 at the time. So that 11 to 17. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And Adidas is gone. Well, that happens.
It happens.
It does. It's unfortunate.
So you would walk around.
That's it.
That's it.
That was it. We would walk around, Rita's. I mean, you would be surprised. And honestly, when I was the years I lived in West Oak Lane, that was kind of my thing too. You know, we walk the city, walk the blocks, and just sit on the stoop. And that was when it was safer to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think we all had that church upbringing. Because we had that church upbringing, there wasn't a whole lot that we were going to risk getting into. But even though I had my friendship with, you know, my friends, and now I consider them family from church, you know, me and Linnea, we used to get high as outer space. I mean, but I didn't really kick it with Linnea too much out of school. I think I only really hung out with her a few times out of school. So we would get high in school if we could. Like,
how do you do it in school?
In the stairwell.
Really?
Yeah, we did. We did a couple of times, like before PE. We did it. And
like
then,
we're talking smoking weed?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
yeah. And
you light an actual.
Wow. We did. Yeah, we did. And then we, gosh, this is terrible. I shouldn't even be saying this out loud. But there was this.
Reminding you that we are recording.
So, do you remember Miss Patterson? Okay, so she's actually the reason I became an English teacher. I loved Miss Patterson's class. Really? I loved her class. But one day, so I had that class with Earl Stout. And I remember, like I said, being super high going to that class one day. And I never really did that. I had never been bold enough to get high and then go to class, but my high from PE hadn't worn off.
Yeah.
So I'm in Miss Patterson's class, high as a kite. And we had a quiz that day. I don't know why I remember this, but Earl Stout was sitting in the back of the class, and I walked in, and he could see I was really high. And he was like, "Why did you do that?" I remember that. And I looked at him, and I just remember not being able to say anything.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm super high right now. But it was funny because I was always very, I don't know. I think I kind of was looked at like I was maybe a little more demure, maybe a little more quiet and reserved, and not the kind of person who would do that. And so I think that was a little bit of his shock. Like, why would you get high before class? Like you, why would you do that?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, but yeah,
that's funny. That's the second time you've referred yourself as like quiet and reserved. Because if I'm remembering you, Kelley, you were like, at least to me, like my memories of you outside of like chorus were like at least towards me were like loud and rough.
Really?
Rough. Yeah, you were like and that's what's so funny about like wanting that connection, because like I wanted to be like your friend, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be like friends with you because we had so many things in common. But like outside of chorus, it was like tough sometimes because you were like,
I believe you. You
were quick. You were really, really quick.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not one to back down, especially like verbal. Which with a girl, that's the safest, right? Because it's not going to usually get physical. So like, if we're going back and forth, then I have kind of freedom to like go back and forth.
Yeah.
But you would be like rough. I have a very specific memory of when you just killed me. Okay. So once when I was getting my hair cut, my mom had the lady cutting my hair do my eyebrows.
I don't remember this. I'm
this is when we had like a class in like one of those makeshift classrooms, I think, like in the basement during the construction stuff was going on.
Uh-huh.
But like it like fucked it up or something. And I had like a thing, or my mom might have even done it herself, something like that. But like I did like try to do my eyebrows, and like it was like fucked up. And for like 9 minutes, Kelley, you're just in class talking about this hypothetical story to like Jess Davis or something, like, I had this friend, and this friend was trying to get rid of their unibrow. and they ripped all the skin off their head. And I'm just sitting there like,
oh my gosh, I do not remember that.
and that is my best example of you, Kelley, in high school. You're just telling this story, and I'm just thinking, like, does she really have this friend? She doesn't have this friend, right? She's fucking with me, right? She's totally fucking with me, right? She does not have this friend. This doesn't exist. And it's a shame you don't remember it, because to this day, I don't know if you were fucking with, because I couldn't believe that you were fucking with me that hard. Like, no one said anything all day about it.
Oh my gosh. I don't remember that, but you know what? I probably was fucking with you.
But at the same time, in that chorus class, there used to be smells in that chorus room. Yeah. And we used to ride on the smells in the chorus room all day long. Yeah. And so, turnabout fair game, we used to get on other people about that stuff. And so I'm not going to say I can't believe I did that. I can believe it. There are, I am very multifaceted, I've learned as I've gotten older. Like, there are times when, and it actually surprises me because I can be boisterous. I am very quick. And that's not something I see in myself. People tell me that all the time. They're like, you're very quick-witted. I don't know how your timing is just, it's insane. But there are times when I am so full of anxiety about talking to people that I will shut down completely and say nothing. Really?
I almost had a complete breakdown when, quick story, as an educator, I really love technology. I really love to integrate technology into my classroom. And I had come up with this tool to help my students in class. And it was essentially, I created a Google form to help them, help them analyze their data about their performance in class.
Okay.
And about our performance as a whole. So I was asked to share this. My principal thought it was like a great thing. So she's like, I want you to share this at our next, she called it whole group, at our next whole group. So whole group is all the teachers, all grade levels in the in one meeting. So she said, she calls me up and I stand there and I freeze and I'm just like, I don't know what to say. And she said, well, just tell everybody about what you did. And I couldn't do it. And I spend every staff meeting like that. If I go to dinner with friends, I spend dinner like that. I don't know if it's just a comfort thing, but in certain environments, I am very quiet and very withdrawn. And there are certain people I'm comfortable enough with that I won't do that. But most people I'm very uncomfortable with the going back and forth and laughing, joking around. I will just, even in that class, there were a couple girls, I'm not going to name them, but there were a couple girls in that class who made me feel like that. Like I would just shut down when it came to them. So
I would have never expected that.
Yeah, I think there are just two sides to me. I mean, if you look at my friend list on Facebook, I have like 400 friends because I don't like to express myself I don't like to express my true self to everybody. And that I don't think is about not being genuine. I just have this real fear of being judged by people. And I don't know where I get that from, but I just have this, and the people that I am closest with are the people I am most myself with. And myself is that person that you experience. I have this friend person. That's me.
I have memories of just like, that's the only specific one, but I just have memories of, and it's funny that you start off with Martin, because I do feel like it was a Martin Pam relationship between you and I, where it just like it was like, oh my God, I would sometimes just like dread, like, oh, she's going to fucking kill me today. Because I didn't have like any type of, I still probably don't. I just wear a lot of like red and shit, but like I never had a lot of like style, especially then. Like I used to wear like tight jeans and like just whatever clothes I had from like 9th grade, I probably still wore in 11th grade. Like I just didn't have any style in that way, you know? So yeah, I would just dread. I knew if something was off, you would probably catch it.
That is probably very true. Like I trust people's perceptions of me because, again, I am true. That part of myself is who I think you are supposed to have. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like that's, so when I'm, out here they call it joning, how they say it in Maryland. So if I was going back and forth with you like that is an indicator that I was probably extremely comfortable with you. Yeah. But there are people that I remember from high school that to this day, if I run into them, I will say nothing. And at this point, it's not necessarily about the judgment for them. It's just like, and it might still be the judgment thing. I don't know.
Did you have conflict like in high school? Problems, issues?
I think I did like early in high school. There was it was with, I really don't want to say her name, but
it's fine.
It was with Jen Sloss, and there was a girl that went to high school with us, Danielle Pitcher.
Yeah.
You remember her?
Yeah.
Okay. So they thought that I liked Dewan, and Danielle was dating Dewan.
Yep.
Yeah. And so there was
9th grade.
That was 9th grade. And so that was like a big falling out. And I was like, well, I really don't like him. But, it was, and I mean, I liked him. We were friends. I was friends with Dewan and Steve Newman, and, we were cool. But it wasn't a thing between Dewan and I. So it was, so that was unfortunate. That was a falling out that we had. But outside of that, I don't really recall. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't really recall having big falling outs or big conflicts with people. That one was probably the worst, and it was really long lasting. Like really? It just went on. It seemed to go on forever, and it was sad because,
Well, what is that like? Like when you say it goes on, like for me as a guy, if I have a problem with someone, it probably means that like we're getting in fist fights, or shoving matches, or I'm in fear of fights daily, or like stuff like that would be like what I would go through. For a girl, what does that mean?
So I don't necessarily think it was a physical thing. I wasn't concerned about a fight. There was, it was just like, because Jen and I were friends, and I was also, kind of friends with Danielle Pitcher, by the way, not Cataldi, Pitcher. Yep. I mean, I was cool with Danielle Cataldi too, but she wasn't part of the conflict. I think because I was such good friends with Jen that's why it seemed like it was lingering. So it was like every day not talking to my friend made it feel like it was going on and on and on again. It wasn't this conflict happened this day and now we're no longer friends. It was there was a period of time when I thought we were all still cool, but everybody was ignoring me and I couldn't figure out, why. I'm like, what's going on? What happened? And then I found out. So you're talking about like months of us not talking. And
so for you,
yeah,
like the issue of like when you're dealing with like a problem, it's having friends who are now no longer talking to you. You're like dealing with silence, and you're walking in, you're trying to have these, what has been your norm through a high school day. Cause we got periods, right? And so when you come in the morning, you usually meet up with these people. When you have free, when you're going to lunch, you usually meet up with these people, or when you're passing through, going to lockers, whatever, you meet up at certain periods. You've been doing that all year. So for you, whereas I was worried about like fights or whatever, you're more so dealing with like probably more mental of why aren't my friends talking to me? What's going on?
Yeah. It was the anguish like this.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, I think that may very well be a female thing, because my daughter at 7 will have little spats with her girlfriends. And then when she goes to school the next day, or she'll be worried about it that day at the end of the school day. She's like, well, my friends were really upset today and we got into an argument and we weren't talking. And then the next day when she goes to school, she'll tell me about it. Well, I don't know what to do if my friends aren't going to talk to me today. So it's just it was the social aspect, like not having my friends to kick it with and talk to and confide in. And again, I mean, eventually that goes on so long that you just like, okay, well, whatever. It's not going to be repaired. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. And on the heels of that, not on the heels of that, but I was still, during all of that, still looking for friends to connect with people like me, and so those friendships happened, and it kind of got to the point where I just wasn't interested in repairing anything anymore. It wasn't like, I don't want to be your friend. It was just like, well, this is not going to work. So,
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of how I, when I was younger, maybe even now, treat friendships. Like I would always, and maybe that's why, not why, maybe what you said, like it's a girl thing. I don't think so. I think I probably had that too. Yeah. And probably just didn't didn't realize it, didn't know it. But I can remember times when like friendships would change and I'd be like, oh, but I think I would anguish, or I would wonder. But I think my go-to would be, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. We're not friends anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to stop being your friend because I think you're avoiding me. You're ignoring me. So, you're going to be friends with that guy now? Oh, fuck that. Fuck you then. I'm not going to even talk to you now. We can't be, you know what I mean? Like, I would jump the gun and try to eliminate the mental anguish.
But yeah, I mean, I have so many anxieties that now, looking back at high school, I think to myself, like, I wonder if I hadn't been so anxious about things in high school, if relationships for me could be different now. If I could, I might still be friends with those people. Some of it might have just been my own anxieties. And instead of approaching people, because I didn't want to have conflict. So instead of approaching people and saying, hey, let's, can we talk about this? I would just say, no, she's going to be mad at me. Ooh, I don't want to deal with that. So I'm just going to wait until she gets over it. And so because of that anxiety, I would not ignore, but just kind of try to wait things out. And then they would just dissipate. Jesus. That's why y'all should read. Okay.
Reading is fundamental.
It is fundamental.
Did you date in high school?
I actually did not date anybody we went to high school with. I dated outside of our high school.
Okay.
And now that I think about it, I don't even remember what high school he went to. What high school did he go to? I don't remember.
How do you meet people outside of the school district?
Visiting my family in Philly. Yep, visiting my family in Philly. I got to really know a lot of people in the neighborhood. There was a guy that I dated who lived across the street from my grandmother, and I wouldn't even say I dated him. We were really just talking. You know, we knew each other pretty much our entire lives, because I knew him when I was a little kid living on Andrews Avenue. And you know, he was always the freshest kid on the block. As much as I love sneakers, you know, and I think that's how I knew at the time I had a sneaker fetish, because he had the freshest footwear on the block. And he always had a fresh haircut. So, you know, he was super dope to me. So yeah, we talked when I was in high school, but not really anything serious. And I really didn't have boyfriends in high school. There were always guys who went to high school with us who would tell me later, like, oh, I had a crush on you last year. And I'm like, well, what good is that doing me now? Like, thank you for telling me now. But I had a couple boyfriends in middle school, but not high school. High school was, you know, I was super awkward. I was really awkward in high school, I think, anyway.
See, that's a great example of how you just don't really know somebody, because that's not something that's not a word I would ever use to describe you.
Really? I felt so weird. I felt like a weirdo.
No, I thought, so like, I would have thought that you were like just in on like the cool black, like cool black kid crowd. Like, you know how there's black Twitter, there's like black cool crowd, cool crowd, and then black cool crowd. I would have thought you would have been in on like black cool crowd, you, Jess Davis.
Oh,
Bianca.
Jess Davis. She is hilarious, yo.
Like that would have been my, that would have been my perception, and like partying and, you know what I mean? Just kidding it, you know, like all the cool black kids, just, you know.
Really? You know, it's like I said, I have to trust other people's perception of me, because
that's not true. No, but that's what I'm saying. That's not true. But you're saying that's not all what your life is. So that's
true.
You know, at a time for me, like it's almost like a sadness that I wasn't open-minded enough or brave enough to pursue a friendship harder, to get to know you, to ask what you're, I always think and I do this today, I do this especially with girls, in that I look at them, I get a general stereotype in my head of what I think their life is. And if that's over intimidating to me, then I generally don't approach, or I don't engage.
Really?
And so for me, if like I feel like you're in black cool kid crew, that's too intimidating for me, in the same way that, you know, hanging out in cool kid crew would be intimidating. And so I don't engage in that way, but we would have had the best time hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. Because honestly, I think we were next level, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but beep, beep. I think we were next level funny. Yes. For our age, nobody could touch us in roasting.
Yes.
We would have been untouchable. I think we could have been next level funny. We would have been like, don't fuck with them, because they're going to hurt your feelings.
Kelley, everything that we joke about is like what is my preferred brand of humor. Everything I try to create. All of my nostalgia favorites, you know, when I don't know if I can't remember if you're on Instagram or not, but
I am. I have these times when I take breaks from social media and I just kind of disappear. And that's when you guys get to see my quiet side. But there are times when it's just too much noise. But I do have IG, and I go on sometimes.
I'll do like these runs on Instagram where I'll drop in like songs, throwback jams and stuff. And like a lot of times, like there's songs from like our era, you know, but like a lot of that nostalgia stuff is, and my brand of humor and things that I like to talk about is from the stuff that we used to joke about. A lot of times that's like my favorite era of life.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about our era, I think about 112. I honestly, I can, in my head, I can like add a soundtrack to our memories. Definitely Life After Death is on there. Definitely Puffy's No Way Out. Like a lot of Bad Boy. A lot of Bad Boy is
Lil
in
Kim,
yes.
Foxy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I haven't heard. I got to listen to some Foxy today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Bad Boy. Now, Mace, we used to really do Mace. Remember? No, it wasn't you. Do you?
Yes.
Were you in class with Francesco?
No.
Okay.
Oh, maybe, but I don't know what this is.
Okay, so I was this might have been middle school, but I was in class with Francesco Santo, and he did a song. We had to perform a song. And I think this was before our music teacher went away on maternity leave, so maybe this was high school. But Francesco Santo played Biggie. He was Biggie Smalls. He was Big Papa. And what song did we perform?
Mo Money, Mo Problems.
I think that's exactly what it was.
So let's see, that would have been 97.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, we were definitely in high school then, and we performed that song, and it was myself and Ebony, and I can't remember Ebony's last name. Was it
Watson? What?
Was it Watson?
Ebony.
I don't remember. I just remember one of us was dancing, and we were the dancers, and Francesco was Notorious B.I.G. He was rapping. We were dancing, and one of us dropped down and our pants split, and so that was it for the performance. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Ebony though, but yeah.
Ebony White sounds right.
Yeah, I think it was Ebony White, but it's just such that class. I don't know why I remember more of that class than any other, and it has to be the fun we were having and the comedy and all the music. It had to be the music, because we were allowed to really explore the music that was important to us at that time, and that music is really the soundtrack for our growing up. Like Bad Boy has got us covered for our.
What about Drew Hill?
Oh yes, tell me what you want. I remember that.
What about Something for the People?
I forgot about Something for the People.
Yippee-ki-yay, wanna up your body, baby. All over your body, wanna up your body.
I remember that. Oh my God. You know, there are times when I just like my memories play in just these flashes, and I don't have full memories of a lot of things. And I don't know if that's because of all the weed or if because I had so many. I mean, I've traveled so much since high school, and I've got so many other memories that I think I lost a few along the way. But man, yeah. I cannot believe we really should have been friends in high school.
Yes. We were living, same lives in our own houses.
Yes.
At least from a cultural music and TV show standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also have a very white side too. So,
well,
instead of listening to something, 20 times in a row, I listen to it for 10, and then the other 10 I'm listening to like Lisa Loeb and
oh my gosh, that is why would you pick that? That's a very white.
Yeah. I love that song, Stay. You say, stay, right? You say, only hear what I want to. Remember that song?
Actually, though, that song slaps.
Yeah, that song's fire. That song's fire.
I love that.
How about John B?
Oh.
I think that's when he came back with another. So that's when he came back with "They Don't Know." Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That was what. Yeah, because I think he was more popular when we were much younger.
He had the song with Babyface.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
That was his first song, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that his first single?
But then he came back with like the Caesar cut.
Right. That's when he switched cultures.
Mm-hmm.
He realized the thing.
That's when he wrote the blueprint for Robin Thicke.
Yes. I look back at that music, or I look at our white artists, and there are people that I don't want to say our white artists, but I look at white artists who make hip hop and R&B and soul, and sometimes I wonder if that's really the music that they love making. And other times I wonder if they're really just pandering to Black folks, And for me, it's really hard to tell because I enjoy the music so much, right? There's like a little bit of a conflict there. I'm I don't know, What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that?
Temple Made.
Oh, I see it. Okay, so I have to ask you.
Yeah.
Or, we all went to school. We all went to Temple together. And this is not necessarily a question, but, I have to say there are days when Keyshawn's death still really hurt my feelings.
Hurt your feelings?
Well, I mean, I'm still sad about it. Like there are days when, because I was in Anderson Hall. I had class, and I remember leaving class that day. I'd learned that he'd passed, but like every time I think about Temple, that memory is there for me.
Really?
Yeah, it's still very, very real to me because I remember I saw the sign, like they put a sign on the dorm. I lived in Ambler at the time. They put a sign on the dorm window, and that, and I was like, not Keyshawn that from Wissahickon, like not him. And then I saw when I came out of the building at Anderson, and I saw like the memorial there for him. And I honestly cannot have a Temple memory without it being interrupted by that. And wow. I don't say interrupted in a bad way. I mean, his passing was really bad, but it like jumps at me often.
Did you have a relationship with him in high school?
I knew him, and I didn't know him as well as others did, clearly, but I remember always looking at him and being and saying, because he was Gothic, and I remember looking at him and thinking to myself that I felt awkward, and I almost thought that he felt awkward too, like maybe high school was also an awkward experience for him. I always wanted to talk to him because I felt like we would have had a connection, or we would have had a lot of similarities, or we would have shared some things in common. But yeah, it does. It still bothers me. So I said that because I have a bunch of Temple wear, and I can't wear it too frequently because it's like,
wow.
It really bothers me. And when I found out when it was real for me, then it was like, wow, like this is crazy. I mean, I have great memories at Temple, but not one of them is not interrupted by his passing.
By Keyshawn.
Yeah.
I had class there. I had a poetry class there. Mm-hmm. I'm wired a little bit differently. It takes me some time sometimes to feel different stuff. So for me, it was, I guess I'm not as taken to it as much.
Yeah.
I think about it. But I didn't really know, Keyshawn in a, I guess, strong way. Yeah. But it's definitely something that when I got class there is the first thing I thought of, when I was like, oh my God, it was on the floor. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. And I think when I think about those buildings, because I just hated those buildings. The buildings, for people that we don't know what we're talking about, Anderson Hall and Gladfelter Hall, which are across from each other at Temple's campus, are these really old, tall buildings. They have these horrible elevators, and I wish they would just start over with them. But that's probably probably the biggest thought I have of that area is Keyshawn.
Yeah.
I think of Keyshawn, then I think of the bad elevators, then I think of this blonde girl I had poetry with. So
yeah. I spent a lot of time in that building, and that might be it too, because I majored in English. I majored in English and I minored in African American studies.
Really?
Yeah. So when I say I was longing for this connection with people who look like me, it was really a journey.
Was Mrs. Patterson your favorite teacher in high school?
So I had two favorite teachers in high school. My favorite female teacher, well, I would say I had three, even though one was very mean to me, but I still liked him. So Miss Patterson was definitely my favorite. If I had to pick one, it would have been her for sure. Again, like I said, she's the reason I became an English teacher, because she taught me content that I really, really enjoyed. I always loved reading. Yeah. But there were things that I would never have wanted to read or never found interesting. Like, I would never have been into Poe without her.
Edgar Allan Poe?
Yeah, I would never have been into something like that without her. And so I credit my desire to educate others to her, for sure, 100%. And also, I think she saw in me more than I saw in myself. And that was important to me as a kid, because I wasn't necessarily surrounded by people that I thought believed in me or saw anything of value in me. So for her to do that when I was, 17 years old, and probably most vulnerable, because I was still kind of searching for myself and trying to find something good or beautiful about myself, that was amazing. It was incredible. So she knew exactly what to say to me, right? And I know that day I went in her class, she knew I was high. She had to. My eyes looked like Louboutins. They were, it's not possible that she didn't. And she was a mother. Moms know everything.
Moms know, right?
They know everything. She had a major impact on who I became. And she had a major impact on my thirst for knowledge. When I was in high school, school was just school. But she actually made me want to know more. And I think it had a lot to do with her making the content that would otherwise have been very boring to me more interesting. And so then I kind of said, well, hey, if this can be interesting, maybe some of these other things that I really don't care about can be interesting too. Mr. Cairns, one of my favorite male teachers.
I was going to say Mr. Cairns, I felt like had that effect of making things interesting for me. We might have had Cairns together.
Yes, I think we did. I hated political science, but Mr. Cairns made it interesting for me. Even though I barely passed, I think I got a C in his class. I'm pretty sure I got a C, but Mr. Cairns, he was a cool dude too. He was pretty I don't know. I don't want to say with it, but
he was young. He was like 24. Relevant. He was brand new. He was one of those young teachers that came in. There was something that happened, I think around 10th grade, a lot of the older teachers who had been there for 20 some years or whatever took buyouts. So do you remember Mr. Russo, those guys left, and a lot of newer, younger teachers came in, Mrs. Chaplin and Mrs. Palmer and Mr. Cairns and Mr. Malone. And
Yeah.
other guys that'll go unmentioned, but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so like, it was like, we had this 24-year-old kid. When I think of myself at 24, my God, this 24-year-old teaching us about the government, you know, he had a sense of humor, and I used to call him by his first name. I used to call him Jimmy.
Yeah. Mr. Gallagher.
Mr. Gallagher, science teacher.
Mario.
Yeah, with the beard.
Yeah, and the comb over.
Yeah. He kind of looks like the scary guy in Home Alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really thought when I was in his class, I really thought he hated me, but I loved that dude. I did. I really liked his class. I was never really good at science, but, you know, biology seemed to be the one science that I enjoyed. And I know he couldn't stand me because he used to fuss at me all the time. But then I would have these little side conversations with him and he would be really nice. And I would say, well, hey, how's it going? You know, and we would have like a little back and forth about how things were going in our personal lives. And, you know, when teachers talk about their personal lives, they don't really tell you their personal life.
Sure.
But yeah, he was cool. I liked him. I really did. So Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Cairns, but definitely Miss Patterson, man. She's educator gold.
Was English your favorite class?
It was. It definitely was. I mean, I liked English because I really enjoyed reading. And I didn't consider myself a really decent writer, but I enjoyed writing. Mm-hmm. I still don't necessarily consider myself a great writer, but I like writing. I do like words, and I love to express myself through writing. And that's not necessarily poetry. I could see myself eventually writing a book about education, or writing a book about how to better educate poor kids, or how to level the playing field when it comes to the achievement gap. You know, I could see myself doing something like that. I do enjoy that kind of writing.
As you were going through school, you said that you kind of wanted to be an English teacher, Mrs. Patterson. Was that kind of the goal the whole way through high school, or as you were kind of formulating, was there anything else that you thought maybe something that you wanted to be or wanted to do? Did you have any other direction?
I wanted to be an attorney also. But I was very easily intimidated by aspirations that I thought were too great for me. And I did have in my mind that there were, even as an adult, there are times when I say, oh, like, that's not something I can achieve. Or, you know, that's up here and I'm right here, you know. So I think that my own self-doubt really stopped me from pursuing law. Yeah, but I did. I wanted to be an attorney, but I felt
what kind?
So I wanted to do either criminal, or I wanted to deal in matters of social injustice. When the Innocence Project was started, when I learned about the Innocence Project years later, I thought to myself, gosh, like, that's exactly the kind of law I would have practiced, you know? But yeah, I think I really wanted to be an attorney because I always had this thing in my mind. I always had this meter that would tell me to stand firm in what is right. And so I thought law would be the best way to exercise that, you know, like, no, this is right. And we're going to stand here and argue until you see that this is right. That's
how I like to do things too.
Yes.
You'd be surprised how many people walk away from me now. I gotta go, dude. I can't. It's been 45 minutes. I can't do this with you anymore.
But you know what? You'd be surprised at how easily I could take that same passion and move it to the classroom. I was, because I think education is supposed to be the great equalizer. And we know that that's not necessarily true, because you could have an incredible education, but still be the wrong color and come from the wrong background and not be able to achieve the same level of success. It's not a secret that America systematically denies people of color access to success and, wealth. Mm-hmm. But I think in the classroom, the right educator has the opportunity to give equity to students who need it, and to kind of level, like I said, level the playing field for kids who are poor, or like I have a good number of kids right now whose parents are incarcerated, and they think that success for them is if they don't get locked up, which, that is some form of success. If you're surrounded by people who are in and out of prison and you're able to avoid it, that is some measure of success. But I want them to shoot higher, and I want them to be able to see that they're capable of more. So it's about, I think I went into the classroom because I wanted to change, in middle school especially, because I teach middle school and that's very challenging. But I think I decided to teach middle school because I think that's the age where I can really teach them that they are capable of greater. And part of it's also I think a little subconscious, maybe I just said, I want to encourage these kids because I didn't see that I was able to achieve greater. So I want to teach them that they are, or I want to encourage them to believe that they are. But yeah, I think there's a lot of social justice that I deal with in the classroom, or social injustices I deal with in the classroom that I'm trying to squash. And I don't want to call it imposing, but I want to pour into my kids a greater belief in themselves.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny, and we're kind of seeing it now, but it's just funny how, like, you say you didn't want to put yourself kind of out there, or you kind of like shy away from things that maybe seem outside of your capabilities. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's many jobs that are more difficult or less or more thankless than being a teacher. So that's a pretty brave profession to get into. Yeah, absolutely. And so, without knowing it, I think, it's probably it's a less focused on as an individual, right? When you're a lawyer, it's, did you win or lose the case? But you're a teacher, and your success is based off of 20 some odd other kids or more, depending on what your style of teaching is and whatever. But so your success is almost elongated for, what grade do you know? What grade do you teach?
8th grade this year.
8th grade. So for 4 more years to really see what kind of path those kids take. But I think just as hard as being some sort of a defense attorney to get, to try and defend people who don't have a proper defense, setting kids up in the future so they don't end up in a courtroom is equally as important.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at just, today's world, what's going on right now with parents having to self-teach and freaking out, the need for teachers to stay plugged in with kids. And, all of a sudden we took the teachers away and everyone's having a meltdown. So we're seeing how important being a teacher. Yeah. We're seeing how important, teaching really is.
Yeah. School is, I know that kids, especially at this age, or those middle years, they hate school and they don't want to come. But I can't tell you the number of kids who are messaging me. I have an education app on my phone called Edmodo. They're messaging me, "I miss you, Miss Rosario. I miss you. I wish we were in class. What are you doing today?" And I'm like, you guys, I'm the old lady in your life. You don't want to know what I'm doing today. I'm still in my bonnet. and I'm eating popcorn for breakfast.
Listen to Al Green. I'm slipping around in the kitchen in my socks.
Right. I'm boiling Fabuloso on my stove. Like, you don't want to know what I'm doing. But this has shown us, if it hasn't shown the nation, it's definitely shown me and shown some parents how important teachers are, not just to educating students, but to forming the whole child. Like, these kids, they see their teachers as an important adult in their lives, and oftentimes measure, kind of pair them up next to their parent. Like, I need you, like I need my mom or my dad. They recognize that we're not their parents, but they have this feeling that they need us. Our county closed down, and for 2 weeks, there was no education. Absolutely no education whatsoever. We were doing nothing for students between March 13th and March 27th.
Wow.
There was nothing happening. And when we finally moved forward into virtual school, the number of kids who started emailing me and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy I get to see you again." And at that point, it wasn't even seeing them. It was just, you're on Blackboard,
Oh, okay.
Well, they use a different platform, but it's very similar to Blackboard. And so they weren't really even seeing us at that point, but they were just longing for hearing from me. Mm-hmm. And so actually Tuesday, as long as we've been out of school, Tuesday was the first time they got to see me face to face.
Wow.
And I have 103 students, and most of them were those who had access to computers were online, ready to see me. Mm-hmm. And that's major. So they miss us. And I'm enjoying being at home, day drinking.
Same.
Having mimosas with breakfast, and I am enjoying that, but I miss my students. I know that they need to be with me, and I worry about them. Some of them are privileged and some of them aren't, so I have students who aren't eating during the day if they don't get to the school and get a free lunch. And that's a lot to have to, that's a weight that I bear, even though I can't physically do anything about it. It is a weight that I bear emotionally.
Sure. Especially, we were already in the second half of the year, and you've come to care for these kids, these specific group of kids, since mm-hmm. September. And so, end of March comes, you're 2 months away from ending. So mm-hmm. to have that connection the whole way, and then to drop off for the last 2 months, and knowing everyone's routine, knowing students' home situations, mm-hmm. just knowing everything, and now you're just completely unable to connect with them. That's gotta be tough.
Yeah, it was a real nightmare. And at first, everybody feels that way. That first week off, you're like, yes, a week off. We all felt like that because as educators, we do need a break. I don't ever stop working. As soon as school ends at 2:00, I spend my lunch with my students, continuing. I reteach. I spend from 2:00 to 3:30. I'm working with students. Mm-hmm. I built a website for them. They text me, not my phone number, but they text me through like our little education apps. I am constantly connected to them, and that's when they're able to see me. So if they need me that much when they see me, imagine how much they need me when they're not seeing me. So it's been nice to be able to get online and talk to them today. And on Tuesday, we have to do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Seeing them online has been really nice. And, at the very least, even if they don't care about anything I'm teaching them right now, I know that they're okay.
Right.
I'm like, hey, you here?
Yeah.
Let's start with that. So, but it's cool. I do enjoy educating. I started teaching in Japan, and that was, oh yeah.
I want to know. God, this is gonna be a two-parter. I have so many questions.
Japan's amazing.
Wait. Let me go back to let me just go back to the end of high school.
Okay.
You left at in 11th after 11th grade. You left for your senior year.
Yes.
Where did you go?
Poconos. I went to Pocono Mountain Senior High School.
Okay. And that was because your dad got restationed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We were living in a place called Toby Hanna, which is very appropriate for the Poconos. I was working at a resort called Pocono Manor Ski Resort. It was a ski and golf resort, actually burned down recently.
Oh.
But Pocono Manor was a very old, 100-plus-year-old place, very reminiscent of The Shining. But I did enjoy, yeah. But the Poconos was, there's nothing there. There's nature. A few times came home, couldn't get off the school bus because there was a black bear in front of the garage or something like that. But, for the most part, that was our excitement. There is literally nothing in the Poconos.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sure I know the answer just because how you've kind of described your family, but was there ever any thought, you had 1 year left, to the Poconos isn't very far from the suburbs of Philadelphia. Was there ever any thought to letting you stay in the area to finish out your final year? No? No.
I didn't know, or we didn't know anybody. That's not true. We knew people, but my parents didn't have a strong enough relationship with anybody that we knew in Ambler that I could stay with. Mm-hmm. So I would have ended up living in Philadelphia and going to another school anyway.
Right.
So, and it would have just been too much hassle, but that was a tough move. That was a really tough move. Yeah.
I can imagine. What's the makeup of Pocono High?
You would be surprised at the number of Black folks live out there.
Yeah?
Yeah. A lot of New Yorkers.
Oh.
A lot of New Yorkers. But Pocono Mountain School District is very large. We had 2 campuses. So there was Pocono Mountain East and Pocono Mountain West. And then there was a Pocono Mountain Junior High School and a Pocono Mountain Senior High School on the East Campus. So, but like I said, a lot of New Yorkers, there were more people there from New York probably than anywhere else. Huh. Yeah.
So what was your transition for college? Like, was it always Temple? Is that where you wanted to go? Did you apply to other schools, look at other schools?
I did. So I applied to Princeton, Howard, University of Maryland, and Temple. Now this is going to sound crazy because when I tell people this, they're like, what? Like, it's such a good school. Temple was my last resort. It was I could
see that. Wait, say again. Howard, Delaware.
Oh, no.
Maryland. Is it Howard, Maryland?
And Princeton.
No, I could see why Temple would be your last resort. Those are very prestigious schools. Maryland is a state school, but it's probably a little bit more prestigious than Temple. And Howard is the HBCU, and Princeton is Ivy. So
yes. Yeah. So, and I Princeton, I think I always knew I was not going to go. I just needed to prove to myself that I was good enough to go. And for the sake of my self-esteem, my parents paid for the application. And I was accepted.
What?
Yes, but I did not get any financial aid whatsoever. Like none. So I applied to Howard. I was accepted. They just broke, the financial aid package came and they were like, yeah, it's about $26,000 a year in loans. And I was like, yeah, nope, I'm not paying over $100,000 for my bachelor's.
Yeah.
And so then it was based on, our finances at the time, because the time I was going to college, I didn't want a lot of loans. My parents were going to pay for some of my education, but my parents were also still raising my brother, who was in still middle school, he was in 8th grade. And my little sister. So first generation college student, I was thinking about my parents' finances, of course. And so University of Maryland, I got in and I got into Temple. And the Maryland, obviously out of state tuition was much higher than Temple with the in-state tuition. And the crazy thing is my Temple tuition was so low. Like I look at how much it costs to go to Temple now and I'm like, gosh, that 5% increase every year looks more like 30 because it's crazy. It's insane. But I mean, I think without room and board, it was like $5,000 or $6,000, maybe $7,000 a year before room and board for me to go to Temple when I went. So clearly I'm pretty old. But it was, I mean, and then it wasn't like Temple wasn't a good school. It was just like, okay, I knew that academically I could qualify for Temple. I knew the area, you know, from growing up in Philadelphia. And it was just like, oh, I know I can go to this school, but can I do these other things? So I went with Temple. It was more affordable and it was an excellent decision because Temple is an incredible school.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a great
Love
school.
It.
So
I ran into you a couple times on campus.
Yeah.
I feel like outside of the library or something.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in there.
Yeah. But I never hung out with you, never never talked to you. And I think, and then I kind of lost track of you. And then, so part of the reason why I had to do this podcast, I did this podcast with you like right now today. And I was like, let's do this podcast is because, so here's a story with wanting to do this podcast with you. When this idea came up like over a year ago, you know, you look at all the people that are around and you're like, okay, this can be done. And then you start thinking about, well, there's a lot of people that don't live anywhere near here. Yeah. And then you start looking I look at like, you know, Andy Marshall lives out in like Rocky Mountain area, like Wyoming or something like that.
Wow.
My Wyoming or Montana, one of the two, I think. And, you know, other people live in California and down in Florida. So my dream, if you've listened to the podcast, I've talked about this a few times. My dream trip is Japan.
Let's go.
So literally last year, I'm telling people, they're like, what are you going to do for people that don't live anywhere near here? I go, yeah, I'm going to Japan. I'm staying with Kelley and we're doing the pod there. That I didn't tell you that, but that was in my head what was going to happen. And then you moved back.
Listen, I have roots there. So when you're ready to go, my daughter, she only went to Japanese school. My family loves Japan. When you're ready to go, we'll go. I love Japan and you will absolutely love it. The drunk culture there is crazy.
I've been wanting to go I've got a Ribera Steakhouse t-shirt upstairs in my room. Do you know about Ribera Steakhouse?
Yes.
Yeah, I got the bowl and the whole thing. I got the whole t-shirt upstairs.
So the incredible thing, I think the thing I most enjoyed about being in Japan is just the safety. You know, it's just so safe and it's so clean. But, you know, like I said, the drunk culture there is crazy. Like if they get too drunk, they'll lay down in a parking lot and it just be like, it's just fine.
My kind of people.
I remember, I've seen this so many times, like groups of people asleep on the street because they got too drunk to make it home, or they've been drinking all night long. And so where are they going to go? Like, I'm trying to make it home, but I got to pass out a little bit first to get my bearings, you know? But it's cool. There's a lot to do. And, yeah, it's awesome. So when you're ready to go, you let me know. You would enjoy it. There's, like I said, there's a lot to do. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's very quiet. Even at times when you would think it'd be pretty loud, it's not. Yeah. You know, but it's pretty awesome. And I was moving back was really hard for me. It was really hard. I still love my friends from Japan, but I love just the peace of being there. You know, I really enjoyed that. When we landed in the airport, it was such a culture shock. My kids were wearing headphones. They were like, it's so loud here. Why is there so much talking? And my son, you know, he's 11. So he was 10 when we left, but when we left the US to go there, he was a good 6 or 7 years old. So it's not like he doesn't know American life, but he becomes so accustomed to public quietness, you know, and, you know, not really being allowed to be loud on trains and things. So it's nice. And it's definitely a place we are considering going back to. My husband retires this is 2020. So he retires in 5 years and he'll be completely retired. So, we have considered just going back to Japan, and I'll resume my teaching career there if I go back to teaching when he retires. But yeah, it's dope.
So when did you meet your husband? Did you meet him at Temple, or did you meet him outside of that? Or
yeah, I met him at Temple.
Oh, fellow out. I like that. So I actually met him in front of 1940. Really?
Yes. So I was out with, I'm sorry, it's my kids. I was out with my roommate and, actually I wasn't out with my roommate. I was out with just a couple of friends from Ambler campus, and that friends I'd met at Ambler campus, but I actually had moved to main campus at that time. I'm sorry, my kids keep texting me. They want me to approve their request for Roblox. Roblox. It's a game that they like to play.
Oh, but what do you have to do? Like connect with a Facebook or?
No,
You have to pay for something.
I have their phones on lockdown. They're not allowed to do anything without my permission because people are weird and they do try to go through kids' phones.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I don't play those games. So I was out one night with them walking through Leocorus Walk past 7-Eleven, and there was my now husband, but he was with a group of his friends, and we just walked by, and Osmond, that's my husband's name, he's very quiet. Now, I think I'm quiet. I know compared to him, I'm not quiet. So
especially when you feel comfortable.
Right. So I always thought that I maybe heard him try to say something, but I ignored him because in Philly, that's what dudes do. Yeah. They just start hollering and every woman knows you ignore it.
Yeah, you gotta keep walking. So I did. I kept walking, and I went over to J&H, and I think we went to the caf there or something like that, the little cafeteria. Then we came back, and he was still there with his friends hanging out in front of 1940, and he just asked if, he said, I was hoping I could get your phone number, so I'd call you sometime. And I was like, no. 1940 is the dorm right at the corner of like Diamond Street or Norris Street. Norris Street at the end of Leocorus Walk.
Yes, I think
across from Annenberg.
Yes.
Cool. Just want to make sure I have the right thing in mind. By the theater house.
I think so.
Yep.
I know there's the 7-Eleven there, and it used to be.
Yeah.
The 7-Eleven there, and then Peabody is across from 1940.
Yeah. Okay.
So, he just said, I was hoping I could get your number so I'd call you sometime. And I was like, no, not really. And so No,
I'm interested in this because these are like situations that I find myself in. So I'm in like where I already know the spoiler alert is it was a success.
Yes.
I am taking notes. Go ahead. So you said no, and then he did what magic trick? Go ahead.
He looked at me and then, wait. So I think all right. actually, we met before that. And he tried to get in. I was having a conversation with my friend. We were in the sack.
Yeah.
And he came
Black
over.
people love the sack.
Oh, for real.
Black people chilled in the sack all day.
Yes.
The sack was like K-Hall.
Yes, it was. we were in the sack. I was having a conversation with my friend. He came over and he just kind of jumped in the conversation. I cut my eyes at him because I was like, I'm not talking to you. It's like, why are you in my conversation? You know, I was very, very... Now I'm really starting to see that part of myself. That
as soon as you said that scenario, I would be like, oh, he doesn't belong.
So I'm like, okay. So I just told my girlfriend, I was like, all right, I got to go. So then I left. Later, I saw him again. And he asked for my number. And I said, no. And then he said, well, I was just hoping that we could get together and talk and I could get to know you a little better. So I said, okay, how about this? I said, I'm not going to give you my phone number, but you can give me yours. So he gave me his phone number. And I don't remember how he got my number. I think I accidentally called him because it was the last number in my phone. The last number that I saved in my phone. Is this
a Freudian thing, or it was really an accident?
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna call him real quick and hang up, just so he has it. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah. So he called, and
wow.
I called accidentally, and then I just hung up, and then he called back, and then he asked if we could hang out. And I was like, no, I'm about to go back to my apartment and go get some sleep or something like that. Now, this is like literally I gave him my number or he gave me his number. I accidentally called him. This is a matter of maybe 20 minutes that he called me and asked, could he come over? And I was like, no, you can't come over. Like, I'm about to go home and go to bed. And I think maybe the next day he called again and we talked. And as I started to talk to him more, I did start liking him, but he always would ask me to be with him, and I was like, nah, no.
Like in those words, will you be with me?
Yeah, he just used to say like, you trying to be my girl, and I'm like,
you want to be in a relationship? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I don't. Want
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, he did. He kept asking, and he asked almost continuously for like a good 30 days. Before I said yes.
What were you looking for anything at that point? Did you not want to be in a relationship? Were you?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I really wasn't.
I mean, it didn't sound like you really dated anyway in high school too much. And so was dating just not really?
No, full disclosure, he was light skinned and I didn't want to date no light skinned guys.
I was going to make a joke and say you liked his light skinned style, right? And I seen his picture. He got the waves and all that.
I didn't.
He could have been an R&B singer. He could have been in 112.
He could have.
What is this numbers in your pocket? I remember when you used to
throw those things away. I didn't want to kick it with no light skinned guys. I really didn't. But
you're light skinned, right?
Huh?
You're light skinned, right?
I am. I didn't want that though.
Okay.
But I forgave him because he's light skinned because his father is Puerto Rican. So I said,
I was gonna say he looked like mixed with some.
Yeah. You ain't all the way.
He mixed with some.
But yeah,
that's a cool mix.
Yeah, I really didn't. I think for me, it was just a matter of I moved so much and I was never like a steady person. I mean, even with me being at Temple, remember my family's still living in the Poconos. My dad's still in the military. And the year before I met my husband, we moved again.
Where they moved?
And we moved to Harrisburg.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was only at Temple for 1 year when my parents moved to Harrisburg. After that, I moved to Harrisburg with them and was commuting back and forth to Temple every time I had class.
How often was that?
So I was full-time, but I took all my classes Tuesdays and Thursdays, so twice a week. But I was on campus all day.
That's what I feel the situation was when I ran into you. I think you said like you're only here like 2 days a week. And I felt like yeah, you were telling me that you weren't living on campus or near campus. And I was like, well, I'm never going to be able to hang out with you.
Yeah, I mean, he and we kicked it. And I didn't want to like him, and I did. And I liked him a lot. And I still like him a whole lot. And here we are 17 years later, you know.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, 17. It's been 17 years. We've been married for 14.
Wow. So you got married like right after graduation.
Yeah.
So you guys were together for what, like 2 years and then got married?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Wow.
About that. Yeah.
I know nothing that grown up. Like,
yeah.
Like that is like meet someone in college for 2 years, date for 2 years, get married.
We weren't grown up enough to do that. We just did.
How'd your family feel about that? Just, you know, being religious and very protective and wanting to know who all your friends were and from your church.
Yeah.
Was that feeling like with your family?
I always wanted Osmond to meet my family before we got too serious. So I did. Like, Osmond and I went on our first date. But at that point, we went on our first like formal date. But at that point, we'd already, developed an interest in one another, like a serious interest in one another. And I knew that it was going to be more than just, you know, friends or what I really thought it would be. So I did take him out to Harrisburg to meet my family, like the day after our first date. And he, like, the crazy thing is, if you look at pictures of my siblings, my husband looks like he's one of us. It's really weird.
Really?
It's very strange. He actually looks like he was already a part of our family. If I didn't know his pappy, I would have had some questions.
You got snuck in there?
Yeah, but you know,
snuck in and sent out.
But he, you know, my parents didn't like that we were getting married so young, but they did know before we got married that that's what we wanted to do. We had planned a wedding, but we never got around to it because we were engaged. He went to boot camp. When he came
what branch
out of boot camp, say that again. What
branch was he in? Navy.
Yeah. And when he came out of boot camp, he knew that he was going to be deploying rather soon. So even though we had already been planning a wedding, we kind of had to forego that because we didn't know when or, you know, how long he would be available for us to have a wedding. Wow. So we were married in Wissahickon, Illinois by this minister who lived on 123 Jackson Street. But I don't know if you were you Michael Jackson? You liked MJ. You loved MJ, right? So remember there was like this interlude on one of their albums. I can't remember which one it was, but they would sing 2300 Jackson Street. It was like this little...
Oh, I don't know Jackson 5 albums.
Yes. So there was this little interlude. And so that was one of the reasons I chose this minister, because of his address.
Wait, what were you doing in Illinois? Was that where he was stationed?
My husband was in boot camp.
So once you graduated, and you guys graduated together in 2005?
I graduated. He didn't. He left and joined the Navy. Okay. I'm sorry. He left and went to another school, and then he went to the Navy.
And then once you graduated, you also moved with him to Illinois.
Well, interestingly enough, when the year that I graduated, we moved again. My family moved again, and we moved to Michigan. And so when he joined the Navy and was in Illinois for boot camp, that was perfect because it's a very short drive.
Right.
Michigan and Illinois. So
better than Pennsylvania.
Much better. And so I drove out there. We would alternate weekends. So I would go out a weekend. He would come out a weekend, back and forth, and so on and so forth. And one weekend, we just said, no, we're just going to go ahead and get married. Let's just do it. You know,
wow.
we were already engaged. We knew it was coming. And so we said, well, let's just get married. And we did. And, you know, I would tell my kids, having done that myself, that we kind of beat the odds. I wouldn't recommend that they do that. You know, I wouldn't recommend that they get involved so young or fall so hard so young and get married as young as we did. Because I was engaged at 21, married at 23, and a mother at 26. And I never lived on my own. I went from my parents' house to my husband's house. And, well, I mean, I had a roommate when I was in college.
Right.
But, you know, that's not the same as having your own place. And, you know, there's a totally different level of both freedom and responsibility that come with living on your own. And you got to be mature enough to handle both. And so we had to grow up as a married couple. And that was a real challenge. Yeah. And it almost broke us more than once.
Did you do that in Illinois?
So we got married in Illinois, and then so we got married in February of 2006 in Illinois. And then in August of 2006, he received 2 orders. One, to move to Virginia, and the other set of orders was to deploy. So we moved to Virginia, and then as soon as we got to Virginia, they sent him out to his ship. He was on the Enterprise. And that was challenging because I had never lived that far away from home before. So my family's in Michigan, I'm in Virginia, and I'm alone because my husband's deployed. And so
what part of Virginia?
I had to develop Newport News. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I was
shout out to AI.
Yeah.
Wow. Bad news, VA. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I lived near a base called Fort Eustis, which is actually closer to Williamsburg. So I wasn't necessarily in bad news, but we used to go to bad news to do like all our good shopping and stuff. We used to go to this, we call it Peddler's Village, where they sold stuff that came off the back of a truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy.
Off the back of a truck. So we
see Michael Vick down there?
I didn't.
Holy shit. You were in Newport News. I mean, can I ask you this? For, you know, when you outline kind of like where you were living here and the neighborhoods that your parents kind of moved to, Newport News is black.
It is, but, you know, the interesting thing is when you live near a military installation, you see a different side of certain communities. So they always seem to put military bases in bad, or quote unquote bad neighborhoods. I won't say they're not bad neighborhoods. They're impoverished neighborhoods more often than
exactly.
not.
Yeah.
But that's typically where they put military bases. And so there's a sense of security that comes with being both on the base and on the outskirts, because, you know, the police are going to respond right away if you're close to the base. So we had, I think, that safety net, but also we had, there was a good amount of diversity, but that came with being in that military community. So yeah, it was actually, I mean, I didn't see, so where we lived in Newport News, you had to cross a bridge to get into Bad News.
Okay.
Yeah. What is the name of that bridge? I don't remember, but yeah, there was a bridge you had to cross to get into Bad News. And we would go, but we knew not to be there after sundown. We knew better than to go down there when the street lights came on.
Is it the James River Bridge?
Yes, that's it.
So this is the new thing now with having this on Zoom. I got another monitor here. I can look things up.
Oh, you can look up stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so there was it the James River Bridge?
Was it the Hampton Roads Bridge tunnels?
No.
The James River
no,
fishing
it wasn't
pier?
that. I think it was the James River, but yeah, that
Wikipedia calls it a 4-lane divided highway across the James River. Connects Newport News
That's
on the
it.
Virginia Peninsula with Isle of White County in the Southampton Roads region.
Yeah, that's it. It's the James River Bridge. But I know that the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, I dreaded that's where the Navy base was. So Osmond had to drive out there to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
But the traffic on that bridge was ridiculous. So I stayed far away from it because I don't have the patience for traffic. But yeah, it was very... I used to think that when you were young, you always kind of started out in like more impoverished neighborhoods than other places because you stay where you can afford. And when you're young, more often than not, there's not a whole lot you can afford when you're young and just starting out. But our neighborhood, like I said, was still fairly decent. And we had Black folks in our neighborhood, Hispanic, we had white folks in our neighborhood. There were Asians in our neighborhood. So we really did have some diversity there. Yeah, it was cool.
At what point? When did you start having kids? So your husband's like not here. And then where are you when you have 2 kids? When does that start happening?
So he was on, when he came back from that deployment, it was November of 2006. So he was gone for 3 months. We still weren't necessarily ready to have kids. And honestly, after having almost raised my brother and sister, the idea of being a parent was very scary to me.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of decided that we were going to hold off for a little while. But then the following year, he was deployed again. Excuse me. And I think that deployment happened in the summer, and it was a 6-month deployment. Yes. So he left around June or July. He left in, July, and then he came back in December. So he came back, or when he left, right before he left, we talked about, having kids. And I said, well, are we going to be the kind of people who like plan and try and worry about when we're ovulating and when's the right time to, do everything so we can have kids? But he said, no, we just want to have a good time. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So I said, all right, well, we're going to continue taking birth control, or what do you want to do? So we said, again, we'll stop using the birth control, and if whatever happens. And so he came home December 19th, and Daniel Rosario was born September 19th.
Wait, let me do the math.
That is
12. He was born what? September what?
19th. So December 19th to September 19th.
It's literally 9 months.
To the day.
Of what year?
He was 2008. He was born 2008.
So it was a leap year, so he had an extra day. It's like a year and a day. Literally a year and a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
I'm giddy.
And the interesting thing is we were never, I think I was always concerned that, I don't know why, I was always concerned about being a parent. But in the back of my mind, I was always worried that I was going to have to try. What's going to happen if we try to have a baby and then it doesn't work and then I can't.
Disappointment, you mean disappointment?
I think it was, I think sometimes it affects your sense of femininity when you believe that you're supposed to be able to have children and you can't. And it does affect the way you feel about yourself, I think, as a woman. And so even before he was home, and I had this anxiety about whether or not we were going to be able to conceive. And I was young, so I didn't really have a reason to think that I wouldn't be able to, but just this, oh my God, what if we can't? And so when we were able to conceive like that, it was just kind of like, well, okay, well, that was done. And I was surprised. I was surprised to find out that I was pregnant. And my mother knew. She saw me. We had visited Michigan, I think, for Christmas. We flew home for Christmas, or not home, but we flew to Michigan for Christmas. And my mother kept dropping hints. She was like, you guys gonna have kids anytime soon? And I was like, nope. I had no babies.
Did you know at that point?
I didn't, but she did. And I probably
snatching the wine out your hand, like, don't drink that.
Yeah, I honestly could not have been more than 2 or 3 weeks. And she just kept dropping these hints. Well, when are we going to have grandkids? Because I really would like some And I just like, I don't know. Like, we're not pressed about having kids. And within a week or so, I found out that I was for sure pregnant. And I called my mom and she said, I already knew. So but yeah. So, and then, so our plan was one. That's clearly, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So our plan was 1 kid, and our relationship, like I said, we were married very young, and we struggled with, I think both of us were just kind of trying to find ourselves as adults and figure out who we wanted to be, what we wanted to do with our lives, what made us happy and what made us unhappy. And we could not seem to get on the same page. And so around about 2010 or 11, we moved to Chicago. And I love
from
Chicago
Virginia.
too. Yeah, from Virginia.
Back to Illinois.
Yeah, right back to where everything
Close
started.
to your parents again.
Yeah.
Where are his parents from?
His parents are from Philly too. They're from Mount Airy.
Oh, okay.
Well, his mother is. His father is from Puerto Rico, still lives in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So we weren't doing well, and we decided we were going to split. And we've actually had that conversation, back then we'd had that conversation so many times, but we decided we were going to split. But we weren't acting like we were going to split. So there was a day I went to work and I was like so sick. And I kept feeling like I was just going to throw up. I'm at work, like, I'm sweating profusely. And one of the students, I was substitute teaching at the time, and one of the students came in and she said, you don't look okay. And I said, I don't feel okay. So I call in the principal and I'm like, listen, I got to go. Like, I'm really sick. I can't stay.
Wow.
And I was nauseous like all day. And I said, so they let me go early. And for some reason, I think I already kind of had an appointment with an attorney that day. I think I did. Yeah, it was like a few hours later. I went home, took a nap, and then went to meet with my attorney so that we could start working on splitting.
It was that serious.
Oh, yeah, it was very serious. And I started talking to her, and she could see I'm sick. And she says, why are you sweating? Are you okay? And I said, I just feel really nauseous. So can we wrap this up and, I'll come back another day. And she asked if I was pregnant. I said, no, I'm not pregnant. Of course not.
So you were still having sex.
Right.
So despite the problems, you're still physically attracted to each other.
Right. And so she says, she opens her desk drawer and she's got a drawer full of pregnancy tests.
No. That's a good lawyer. That's a good lawyer.
She's a good lawyer. So she takes them, and she takes one and she says, I need you to go take this before we finish our meeting. I said, okay. So I went in the bathroom, took the test, pregnant. So now I'm devastated, right? Not just because, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I don't want to have another baby. I didn't want more kids, but I was okay with having another baby. It wasn't, you know, it was a life.
But the whole situation you're in right now.
Yeah, I was panicking because I'm like, I'm getting ready to get a divorce. I can't have a second kid. Now I'm going to be by myself with 2 kids, and I'm still going to be dealing with him. You know, like it was a lot. So I went back to her office and I showed her I was pregnant. She said, here's the phone number to a couples therapist. You guys go and work it out because now you got 2 kids in the mix. And I went home. I told Osmond I was pregnant, and we both just cried because, I mean, it was just so like, what do we do now? Like, it was shocking. It was really shocking. And I was like, I don't know what to do, you know? And I didn't want to put the pressure of saving our marriage on our children.
Sure.
You know, I didn't want to be in a marriage where the 2 of us stayed together because we had kids. I wanted to be with my best friend, and I wanted to have a friendship. And it's still that way. I want to have a friendship with my husband. So, and we are good friends now, but it took us growing up in our marriage to do that. So
that's interesting.
If I can tell people to wait, and when they're like 21, 22, marrying their high school sweetheart, that's always like the first thing I say, like, just keep dating and wait, you know, just,
yeah,
you'll have a much happier marriage if you wait a little while longer.
So then when does Japan come in the mix from Chicago?
So,
or I guess when does the baby happen?
Right. So she came September 2012, another leap year.
Wow.
Yeah, another leap year, another year we elected a Black president.
There you go.
Right? We got 2 Obama administrations.
Holding it down.
Yeah. So we had, after she was born, we stayed in Chicago, I think her name is Grace. So after we had her, we stayed in Chicago again for another 2 years. So we were there until 2014. My husband got orders to Bahrain, and I really wanted to go. And a friend of mine and her husband was Navy too. Both of our husbands got orders to Bahrain. So we were so excited to go together because we're like, we are going to Dubai all the time. We had this whole thing planned out. She was just having a baby and I had just had a baby. And so we were just going to be raising our kids together in Dubai.
So I'm looking, because I don't know anything about Dubai or even Bahrain. So I'm looking, it's in the Middle East.
Yes. So Dubai is just this
I'm really jealous right now. These are things that, like, my world, I've never out, like Canada, a couple other spots. I don't know much about international travel. So
you got to do it. And I mean, I'm looking
at all these water, this maps with all this water. I'm just like, ooh, it's a lot of blue.
Right. A lot of blue I have to fly over.
Yeah.
But myself and the kids never made it to Bahrain because when Osmond left, it was during the school year and we didn't want to interrupt my son's school year.
Sure.
So we said, okay, you go ahead and then we'll come and join you at Christmas break. And when he arrived in Bahrain, his command told him, we're not going to pay for them to come out here. You're here, so now they can't come. So
would you have had to have gone with him for it to be?
Yeah, and that's not always the case when families travel separately. But that was unfortunately the case this time, and I to this day I still don't know why. And the military doesn't owe anybody an explanation for anything. So yeah, they told him that we couldn't come anymore. So we stayed behind, and he was
in Chicago.
For a while we were there, and then I went to Michigan so I could have some help because my parents and my brother and sister were close by. So I just went back to Michigan to get help, and I had a job. I was able to get a job there. And
what were you doing around that time?
So I was working in childcare, but I decided to finish my master's because I started my master's when I was pregnant with my daughter. Before I found out I was pregnant, I got accepted into my program. And so by the time I had her, my first semester was ending and I was in labor. So it was like, and I got a new baby and I have a 4-year-old. And so I had to drop school. So when he left, I said, I'm close to my parents, my brother and sister, maybe they can help. And I went back to school and finished my master's while he was away. So when he came back in 2016, I was Kelley, Rosario, MSCD. And, that was pretty cool. And then Japan right after that. So I graduated, I got my master's in May. He came home in May 2016. I got my master's in May 2016. He came home in June 2016. And by July 1st, we were in Japan. We were in Tokyo.
Wow.
Yep. It was a lot. I mean, my life moves very fast and it doesn't seem that way. I think that's why I'm such a homebody, because things are always moving all the time.
Makes sense.
Me. So I think that's why I really enjoy my porch.
That's why it's funny that's why I stopped for a second, because I was like, all right, Japan. And then because we were talking about it, and then I thought, oh my God, wait, you had 2 kids before that ever happened. Like when I see pictures of your kids look like they were like 4 and like 8 or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, wait, you had a whole life before the time you got married and you're in Newport News. You had a whole life before you ever got to Japan, because you raised 2 kids who, look like little people by the time I was seeing pictures in Japan. So like, that's just wild to me. I mean, that is awesome. Yeah. When this is over, I just want to put down all my money and just go to Japan. Can we just do that as a trip?
Listen, Japan, let's do Asia. I took my kids to Singapore one year for spring break. Amazing. I took them to Malaysia for spring break once. We spent some time in the jungle. Like, listen, as much as I love all parts of the world. Like I did Europe as a kid, we lived in Germany for some time and we went to Paris and went back then it was Czechoslovakia, but now Czech Republic. But, we visited those places. Nothing for me has given me the same thrill as Asia in general. Like there's just so many parts of Asia to enjoy. I like it.
You're back home. You were in Detroit you were in Michigan for a hot second, right? When you came back from Japan, and then settled back here, and now you're in Maryland.
Yeah. I always tend to return to Michigan because my parents and my siblings are there.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to, spend some time with them.
I didn't know that then when you were like stationed there. I thought maybe you were like working, maybe that's where you guys got stationed and you were working there. And then like within like a month, it seemed like you were coming back east. So
yeah, I do kind of frequently take breaks and head to Michigan for a little bit. And then being a teacher, I have my summers off. So it's nothing for me to just head out to Michigan for the summer, and spend some time with my parents so that my kids can be with their grandparents. Because, the grands, you don't get them forever. And my parents are young people, but, they're not going to be in their 50s forever. One of these days, they're going to be in their 80s and 90s if we're blessed to have them that long. So
it's very true.
Try to let them get their time in. And I was very attached to my pop-up as a child. So those relationships, I see the value in them for sure.
Can I ask you about like things getting better with your husband? Because the way you last kind of like categorized the relationship was you were in a lawyer's office to get a divorce.
Yes.
And then you found out you were pregnant, and then we kind of just jumped to you moving to Japan. But can you just talk about just But previous to that, you talked about how in love you are with your husband. Can you just talk about the turning point or just things getting so positive for you guys?
I think it was, finding out that we were having another kid forced us to realize that we had to become adults. Okay, we made this decision to marry young, but now we really have to work out these demons that we're both fighting with ourselves. It was just always, I want my freedom, but I want my husband and I want my wife. I want to do me, but I want this relationship too. So we had to say, okay, we have to establish, I guess first a relationship that, how do I say this? We had to develop something that we hadn't had yet. We had to actually learn to be friends. We kind of jumped right into dating each other because we were interested in one another. But we weren't friends first. And so we had to really kind of start our relationship all over again and develop a friendship and start to see value in the little things we did for each other. So, for example, I'm very particular about how I like things, right? So my husband might get up in the morning and get breakfast for himself, and then he'll get me some breakfast. He'll get me a bowl of cereal. Well, I like my cereal to be crunchy, and I like my milk to be ice cold. But he might bring me the cereal, and it's too soggy at that point. So then, instead of me appreciating that he brought me some breakfast, knowing I was hungry, I might be like, why would you bring me this cereal all soggy like this? Like, I'm not going to eat this, so those things are, a lot of that has to do with growing up, and we had to learn to see we had to learn to see that stuff as good and not as bad, and to stop criticizing each other. But that was kind of it's funny I came up with that example because Osmond loves cereal, so he would have been proud of that. But friendship, and then it just got better. It's introspect. Every single time you encounter a conflict with another person, and it doesn't have to be just a person that you're in love with or somebody you're in a relationship with. It can be a stranger. When you encounter conflict with another person, the first thing you have to do as a responsible and rationally thinking person is ask yourself, am I part of this problem that's happening right now? How did I contribute to this? And that's really I had to train myself to do that, to say, okay, we're arguing right now. Is it because did I say something? Or could I have said that in a way that was less insensitive? Or, or instead of complaining to him about this soggy cereal, maybe I could just say, thank you for thinking of me, and maybe not necessarily eat it, but say, you know what, honey, that was so thoughtful. And I think we kind of overlook stuff like that in not just relationships, but interactions with humans, period. We criticize, or we really only see things that we don't like, as opposed to seeing the things, or seeing the heart behind what someone has done for us. So,
it's fucking deep. That's deep.
Cereal bowl deep.
So when I was doing JP on Monday, is when I came to the realization that the shitty thing about this podcast, now that I have to do them all on Zoom, is that I can't get anyone to sign the yearbook.
Oh.
So like the whole, just for my own personal, because I don't even post them, but just the whole personal, like having people who never sign my yearbook, is gone. But here you weren't even in the yearbook.
Yep. I wasn't. I know, right? This conversation went it went the way I thought it was going to do. I thought it was going to be mostly laughing and joking around. So I'm glad that that happens. I mean, like I said, I listened to your show, so it went as expected. So I mean, I had a great time. So, yeah, I
awesome.
did. And I was so excited to do it. So I feel privileged that you asked me. Yes, I do. I feel privileged that you asked me because I'm a fan. I was listening to the show like, this nigga is crazy. But
no, the second I thought I might lose complete connection from you, I was like, well, I have to talk to you then, you know?
Well, I need to message you my number so we can stay in touch. And especially because when I come to Philly, we got to get the Black Cool Kids together.
Please. And let's, I'd love to meet your husband, kids. Yeah. Let's do food and all that stuff. I want to see you when you get here.
Listen, nigga, you ain't got to tell me twice. You say food.
Let's do food.
You say food, and that's all I need to hear.
I'm in.
So, all right. Well, thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I had so much fun.
This is the best afternoon I've had in a long time.
Good. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later. I'm actually going to message you right now.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll send you all my info.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. I don't know how to. Okay, there we go. Leave.